This year, make a promise to yourself, not a wish, not a resolution, a commitment. A commitment that you will no longer live on repeat, that you will no longer let old habits, old relationships, and old versions of yourself dictate the life you're building now. Because nothing changes until you decide you're done reliving the same lessons. Awareness is the first step to change, because transformation can only begin when you finally see yourself clearly. You cannot heal what you refuse to acknowledge, and you cannot grow beyond what you do not understand. Many people remain stuck not because they lack the ability to change, but because they live in denial of their own patterns. They repeat the same mistakes, attract the same situations, and wonder why life feels like an endless loop. But awareness shatters that illusion. It forces you to confront your own reflection, the habits, thoughts, and emotional responses that silently dictate your outcomes. When you become aware, you step out of autopilot and start consciously steering your life in a new direction. Awareness isn't always comfortable. In fact, it's often painful because it exposes truths that you've spent years avoiding. It shows you where you've settled, where you've ignored red flags, where you've chosen temporary comfort over long-term peace. It holds a mirror to your excuses and reminds you that change doesn't come from wishing. It comes from facing. Awareness asks you to take responsibility, to stop blaming circumstances or other people for what you continue to allow. It demands honesty, and that honesty can sting. But that sting is the birth of growth. It's the awakening that whispers, you don't have to live like this anymore. When you start paying attention, you notice patterns everywhere. You notice how certain emotions trigger specific reactions. You notice how fear disguises itself as logic, convincing you to stay where it's safe. You notice how your language reflects your mindset, how saying, I can't, slowly becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Awareness helps you recognize that not everything you feel is truth, and not every thought deserves your belief. It gives you distance from your impulses and helps you respond instead of react. That distance is power. It's the gap between the old you and the person you're becoming. The beauty of awareness is that it transforms even the smallest moments into opportunities for change. Suddenly, you see how you speak to yourself in the mirror. You notice how you shrink in conversations where you should stand tall. You realize how often you apologize for simply existing. Awareness isn't dramatic. It's quiet, subtle, and deeply personal. It's the inner voice that asks, is this serving me? Before you repeat an old habit. It's what stops you from sending that text you'll regret, from engaging in arguments that drain you, from revisiting wounds that no longer need your attention. True awareness also requires patience. You won't suddenly become the best version of yourself the moment you see your flaws. Awareness doesn't erase your past. It helps you understand it. It allows you to observe your patterns without judgment so that you can begin changing them with compassion. Growth doesn't happen through shame, it happens through understanding. When you know better, you start doing better. Not because someone told you to, but because you finally understand why you must. Awareness brings clarity, and clarity brings choice. Once you're aware, you can no longer claim ignorance. You must either evolve or repeat. That's the crossroads awareness creates. The same lessons will keep appearing until you stop moving blindly through life. When you decide to open your eyes, you reclaim your power. Awareness is not the final step, it's the beginning of everything. It's the moment you wake up to your own potential and realize that change has always been within reach. It was just waiting for you to see it. Healing requires accountability, not blame, because true growth begins the moment you stop pointing fingers and start looking inward. Blame might feel comforting at first. It shifts the weight off your shoulders and places it somewhere else. It makes you feel like the victim of your story, absolved of responsibility for the pain or mistakes in your life. But the truth is, as long as you live in blame, you remain powerless. You cannot control what others do, but you can control how you respond, how you learn, and how you rebuild. Accountability is not about guilt or self-punishment. It's about reclaiming your power to change what's within your control. It is the act of saying, I may not have caused everything that happened to me, but I am responsible for what I do next. When you blame others, you hand them the keys to your peace. You allow their actions to determine your emotional state. But accountability brings the keys back to your hands. It says, I choose to heal, regardless of who hurt me. It shifts the focus from what they did to what you can do now. Accountability teaches you that healing is not about fairness, it's about freedom. The world may never apologize for the things that broke you, but you can still choose to rise above them. You can still decide that your future will not be dictated by your past. Taking accountability doesn't mean you excuse what was done to you. It doesn't mean you deny your pain or pretend the wounds never existed. It simply means you stop living there. You acknowledge what happened, you understand how it shaped you, and you make a conscious decision to learn from it. You stop asking, why did they do this to me? and start asking, what can I learn from this experience? That shift in mindset changes everything. It turns pain into wisdom, chaos into clarity, and heartbreak into strength. Accountability turns victims into victors because it transforms helplessness into purpose. The most powerful form of accountability is self-reflection. It's asking yourself hard questions and being willing to hear the answers. Where did I ignore the signs? What boundaries did I fail to set? How did I contribute to my own unhappiness by staying silent, by accepting less, by avoiding the truth? These are not easy questions, but they are necessary ones. Healing requires courage, the courage to admit your role in your own suffering and to take ownership of your future. Accountability doesn't shame you, it liberates you. It helps you see that even your mistakes were lessons in disguise, teaching you who you are and what you deserve. Blame keeps you stuck in the story of what happened. Accountability helps you rewrite that story. It shifts your focus from the past to the present, from resentment to renewal. When you take accountability, you stop waiting for others to make things right. You stop waiting for closure, for apologies, for justice. You give yourself permission to move forward, even without those things. Because healing is not about winning or losing. It's about letting go. It's about choosing peace over punishment, growth over bitterness. Every time you take accountability, you choose maturity over ego. You decide that your peace matters more than being right. You begin to understand that the power to heal has always been in your hands, not in the hands of those who hurt you. Accountability is a quiet revolution within the self. It doesn't need recognition. It doesn't demand validation. It simply changes you from the inside out. Healing begins the moment you stop running from yourself, the moment you accept responsibility for your own growth, and the moment you realize that no one else can do the inner work for you. Blame might build walls, but accountability builds bridges, bridges that lead you back to yourself. Discomfort is the doorway to evolution because nothing truly grows in comfort. Growth and transformation demand that you step beyond what feels safe and familiar into spaces that challenge your mind, test your patience, and stretch your limits. Every meaningful change in life is born from a moment of discomfort, a decision to face fear instead of running from it, to embrace uncertainty instead of clinging to control. Discomfort is not your enemy, it's the signal that you're evolving. It's the proof that you're stepping out of old cycles and into new potential. Most people spend their lives avoiding pain, conflict, and challenge, yet those are the very experiences that shape strength, wisdom, and resilience. The truth is, comfort may feel peaceful, but it keeps you small. Discomfort, though painful, is what forces you to grow into who you're meant to become. Every time you face discomfort, you're presented with a choice, to retreat back to what's easy or to push forward toward what's better. Growth begins when you choose the latter. Think of every major turning point in your life as starting something new, ending something that no longer serves you, confronting your fears, standing up for yourself. None of those moments felt comfortable, but all of them changed you. Discomfort is the bridge between who you are and who you want to be. It challenges your excuses, exposes your limits, and invites you to rise above them. You cannot build confidence in the absence of fear, just as you cannot develop strength without resistance. Discomfort reveals truths about you that comfort hides. It shows you what you're capable of enduring, how deeply you believe in yourself, and how committed you are to your goals. When you avoid discomfort, you also avoid discovery. You never get to see the parts of yourself that only awaken under pressure. Growth often feels like breaking because your old self is dissolving to make room for something new. That unease you feel when life pushes you beyond your limits is not a sign that you're failing. It's a sign that you're expanding. Every moment of uncertainty, every period of waiting, every painful goodbye is shaping a stronger, wiser, more grounded version of you. The path of evolution is not meant to be comfortable. It demands sacrifice, patience, and the courage to keep going even when everything in you wants to stop. Discomfort forces you to confront your fears and question your limitations. It breaks the illusion that you're not ready, that you're not strong enough, that you can't handle what's next. When you walk through discomfort instead of avoiding it, you teach yourself endurance. You prove that pain doesn't have to paralyze you. It can propel you. Every uncomfortable step forward builds emotional muscle. And every challenge survived becomes evidence that you can overcome the next one. People often pray for growth but resist the process that creates it. They want the reward without the struggle, the transformation without the tension. But evolution is never painless. A seed must break before it blooms. A muscle must tear before it strengthens. A heart must ache before it understands love and loss. Discomfort is the fire that refines you, burning away illusions, fears, and limitations. It teaches you humility, empathy, and resilience. It forces you to let go of control and trust that even the hardest moments are shaping something meaningful within you. When you accept discomfort as part of the process, you stop fearing change and start flowing with it. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start realizing, this is happening for me. Discomfort isn't punishment, it's preparation. It's life's way of stretching you so you can carry the weight of your dreams. Every moment of unease, every season of uncertainty is carving strength into your character. You cannot evolve by clinging to comfort. You evolve by embracing challenge. The more you lean into discomfort, the more you grow, and the more you grow, the more you realize that what once scared you was never meant to stop you. It was meant to shape you. Your standards shape your future because what you accept today sets the tone for what you will experience tomorrow. Every boundary you hold, every expectation you maintain, every decision you make reflects how much you value yourself. When your standards are low, life mirrors that energy. You attract relationships, opportunities, and experiences that match your level of self-respect. But when you raise your standards, the world adjusts accordingly. The way you treat yourself teaches others how to treat you, and the standards you set become a reflection of your self-worth. If you keep tolerating disrespect, inconsistency, and mediocrity, life will continue to hand you more of it. But the moment you decide that enough is enough, that you deserve better, and that you're no longer willing to settle, everything starts to change. Your standards are not about arrogance or perfection, they are about alignment. They define what is acceptable in your life and what is not. They draw the line between what nurtures your peace and what drains it. Every time you compromise your standards for the sake of convenience, validation, or fear of losing someone, you send a message to the universe that you're willing to settle. And the universe always responds to what you tolerate, not what you say you want. The truth is, people treat you according to the limits you enforce, not the ones you imagine. Raising your standards isn't about demanding more from others, it's about expecting more from yourself. More discipline, more consistency, more integrity. When you hold yourself to higher standards, everything around you begins to rise too. It's easy to say you want a better life, but change requires you to prove it through your actions. Raising your standards means no longer entertaining what doesn't align with your growth. It means saying no to temporary comfort that costs long-term peace. It means distancing yourself from people who make you question your worth or dull your light. The higher your standards, the more selective you become with your energy, your time, and your love. And that's not selfish, it's self-respect. You cannot step into the future you deserve while clinging to the habits, relationships, and environments that belong to the past. Every time you choose peace over chaos, growth over stagnation, and respect over attention, you are shaping a future that reflects your worth. Raising your standards often feels lonely at first because it requires you to outgrow people and patterns that once felt comfortable. But what follows that loneliness is alignment. When you stop settling, you make room for what's meant for you. Better relationships appear, healthier habits take root, and opportunities start finding you instead of you chasing them. You realize that life was never withholding good things from you. It was waiting for you to raise your expectations. Standards act like a filter. They protect you from what's beneath your value and guide you toward what matches your purpose. High standards are not about building walls, they are about building foundations. They are about creating a life where you no longer have to beg for the bare minimum. When you raise your standards, you begin to demand presence instead of excuses, effort instead of empty promises, honesty instead of comfort. You start understanding that quality always comes at the price of patience, and that settling will always cost you more than waiting ever will. The person you become tomorrow depends entirely on what you accept today. So protect your energy, enforce your boundaries, and stand firm in what you deserve. Because when you honor your standards, you honor your future. And the future always belongs to those who refuse to lower the bar for anyone or anything that cannot meet it. Rewrite the story and choose differently, because no matter what has happened, you are not bound to the version of yourself shaped by pain, mistakes, or disappointment. Every single day is an opportunity to begin again, to make choices that align with who you are becoming instead of who you used to be. Life is not a single story carved in stone. It's a series of chapters, and you have the power to decide what the next one will hold. Too often, people live their lives replaying the same narrative over and over again, convinced that their past defines their limits. They let old wounds become their identity, old failures become their ceiling, and old betrayals become their reason to stop trusting. But healing begins the moment you decide to take back the pen, to stop letting the past write your present, and to consciously choose differently. Choosing differently doesn't mean pretending the past never happened. It means using what happened as wisdom instead of as a prison. It's the ability to look back and say, that was part of my story, but it's not the whole story. Every painful experience, every broken chapter carries a lesson that can guide you toward better decisions. When you rewrite your story, you don't erase what shaped you, you reinterpret it. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstance and start recognizing yourself as the author of transformation. That shift in perspective is everything. Because once you understand that your story is still unfolding, you stop living in regret and start living with intention. Choosing differently requires courage. It asks you to confront your habits, your fears, and your comfort zones. It means breaking free from the patterns that feel familiar but no longer serve you. Familiarity often masquerades as safety, but it's usually what keeps you stuck in the same cycle. To rewrite your story, you have to stop responding in old ways to new opportunities. You have to stop revisiting relationships that hurt you just because they feel known. You have to stop accepting less than you deserve just because it's what you're used to. Growth happens the moment you start choosing differently. When you act from self-awareness instead of emotion, from wisdom instead of fear, from strength instead of insecurity. Rewriting your story is not a one-time decision. It's a daily commitment. Every choice you make, what you focus on, who you spend time with, how you speak to yourself, either repeats the past or creates a new path. You cannot change your story if you keep feeding the same narrative. If you keep telling yourself you're not enough, that you always fail, that good things don't last for you, then you'll continue to live out those words. The story you tell yourself becomes the reality you experience. So choose words that build you instead of break you. Choose thoughts that encourage your growth instead of fueling your fear. Choose beliefs that empower you to see possibilities instead of limitations. Every time you choose differently, you take a step closer to the life you deserve. You start trusting your own strength. You start realizing that endings are not failures, they're redirections. You understand that forgiveness, both of yourself and others, is not weakness but freedom. The moment you decide to stop repeating old cycles, the moment you take responsibility for your choices, you begin to rewrite the narrative of your life. You start turning your pain into power and your scars into stories of survival. You have the ability to choose peace over chaos, love over fear, purpose over confusion. The story you live from this point on is yours to write. No one else can decide what you become, how you heal, or where you go next. You can keep reliving the past, or you can turn the page and begin again. The power to transform your life doesn't lie in what happened. It lies in how you respond now. Rewrite the story, choose differently, and watch your entire world shift in the direction of your courage.